Peace and love, and welcome back to another episode of the Bare Athlete, where we're having healthy conversations about athletes and their feet. And today I have somewhat of a legend here that I'm learning about, new to, Mr. Chad Little, owner of Code Footwear. And I actually discovered him from a podcast that I listened to, at the Foot Collective, and learned some very interesting things about him and how he's worked with some other companies and found some resistance there and decided that they weren't making shoes really for the athlete and he wanted to do his own thing, and now he's created Code Footwear, and we're going to have a conversation about that. So without further ado, Chad, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, no problem. First question I ask every guest: when did you fall in love with your feet?
When did I fall in love with my feet? I think I fell in love with shoes first, as like going to school and seeing all these kids with different shoes. Initially got my eyes on it. I got interested in feet when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and met a podiatrist who made me realize that my feet were in bad shape. I was playing college basketball at the time, thought I was healthy. I wasn't injured other than some ankle sprains, which I thought were normal for basketball players, and didn't really realize how bad it was until I looked at his foot as a claw and my foot as slumpy, squished toes, arches, fall, and made me just question. And so I got to sit with him in his office and see patients come in, and I started to understand the foot, the biomechanics of the foot, and the relationship with the shoe and the foot, because a lot of what he did was just address these athletes' footwear options and choices. And this was late 90s, early 2000s, so there really wasn't a whole lot of minimal shoe options available. So I was absorbing and soaking in this opportunity to see a lot of marathon type runners, but athletes in general would come see him in the Portland, Oregon area. And a lot of what he'd do is just look at their footwear. And it made sense to me when I would see him explain a higher heel would put your calf and an Achilles in a less elongated situation. So you're not getting the full length and strength of your body. And I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
These toe box shapes are all scrunched on your shoes. Do you think that you're at an advantage to be here versus here? Nah, you're right. That doesn't make sense. So he was just grinding their heels off on like a grinder wheel. He was taking a little knife and cutting the upper just to like give it a little bit more space just to help them out. But I was seeing these patients come back months later, and they didn't have that hip pain or that fasciitis pain or the back issue anymore. And it was pretty cool to see that level of help for people who had foot problems. And I hadn't had the problems yet, but they came later in life. So I started to understand it in my early 20s. And that's where my appreciation grew, just to understand the foot. If I'm going to call myself a shoe designer, which is the path I was choosing to go to after my athletic career was done, I don't want to just design the facade of the canvas. I want to understand how to make these shoes better for athletes and work for them. And so, I had this education kind of built inside to understand what a foot needed. And then I took it from there to think I'm going to go work for these shoe companies after I get my design degree, and I'll change their minds. And it was far from that, because as a low-level designer,
Yeah.
you're asked to fulfill the projects that come to your desk, and it's usually just an aesthetic need of, we need a new look, we need it to meet this price point. And I got my feet wet. I understood the business a little bit when I worked for Pony. It was a shoe company that was more popular in the 70s and the 80s. They had like Pele and Reggie Jackson, and
Yeah.
I was there at a time when they were trying to revive this brand as like an intern coming out of school. And so I got to work on cleats, basketball shoes, kids' shoes, women's shoes, every part of the design from the beginning to the end. It was a really small team that they put together. And so it was a really great opportunity for 3 years to kind of soak up and absorb from a boss who had come from Adidas, just the whole world of footwear and what it took to build an idea from paper to life. And, for 3 years of doing that, I understood it a lot better. But there was no need for my thinking to be interjected into the company's needs. It was so financial based. We have to please this Foot Locker or this other store to get them to buy our shoes. So I understood my assignment, but as I grew as a designer, I was still also trying to take care of my feet. I knew it was a process to get my unsquished toes back to reality. And so at home, I'm wearing toe spacers. I'm doing footwear or foot exercises. Meantime, I'm going back to work and I have to wear shoes that aren't the right shape because they're for the companies I work for.
Hmm.
I would I got to this point where I'd kick my shoes off when I got to work. Now, I'm
Yeah.
in my late 20s, and it didn't make sense to me to be wearing these shoes, so I would wear competition of the companies that I was working for, their footwear, because I started finding better options and it didn't sit well with people. I always, my heart just stood for what I thought was best. And it got to the point where I was done with Pony. I worked for another brand that was doing like Shaq's basketball shoes at Payless for a little while, and I was doing signature level footwear for NBA players with them in hopes that it was going to take over the Shaq line. He had just kind of retired. They wanted some other people in that situation. But again, it came down to we don't need you to change the shape of the shoes. We just need you to give us a new look. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I fulfilled that and was already like getting paid better, and I was happy in one sense. I'm in Southern California living a good lifestyle, but I'm still not fulfilled with, where my head's at on like what this path should be for me.
Hmm.
And then I get a call randomly from Jordan Brand. And for me as a basketball player growing up, it was like a dream come true job. I had applied
I've
there throughout my 20s, never heard back from them. And then to get a call from them to say, we want you to come work for Jordan Brand. I was like, I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And from
yeah,
that point though, it wasn't like that. And it was a quick, I guess, sight into that level of corporate world that I didn't like. And from the very first moment on the phone call, they're calling to recruit me to come work for them. And when I say I'll be there in 2 weeks, the response is, no, we need you to start tomorrow. I'm like, well, I live 1,000 miles away. I gotta pack up, get out of a lease. I can't do that. Oh well, we'll probably just go to the next candidate then. Thanks for listening. I'm like, no, wait, no, it shouldn't
yeah.
be. I can't give up that easily. So it was a Wednesday. I said, well, if I don't start tomorrow, give me one more day of grace. Let's say I don't start Friday either. I'll start Monday. And he's like, okay, let me call my superiors. I'll see if it works, but I'll let you know. Calls back and says, yeah, that's going to be okay. We'll go with that. So already the stress is already like, shoot, I have to like, I just
Yeah.
moved in with my girlfriend like that month.
Wow.
And I had to break it to her that I'm now going to move away for a job situation. And she had just got into a job in the LA area where we were at. And it was the beginning of something for us too, because it helped us kind of figure out what was important. And she came along for the ride, and we moved up to Beaverton from the LA area to take on this job and dream of mine, thinking now I finally have this opportunity to work for a company that listens to the voice of the athlete. They're going to understand what I'm going to try to push in my agenda. They hired me for a reason because I showed them a portfolio of not just my work that I was doing at Pony and other shoe companies. I was also showing just a little bit more level of thinking of how it was going to work with a foot. And I
Hmm.
think maybe some recruiters, it was enough for them to show it to a design boss at Nike to get them to say, yeah, that guy thinks a little bit differently. Bring him in. We need help right now. So they had two designers who had just left. And so their team went from like 6 to 4, and they brought me in, and it was instant, like, you have to finish this job, this project, this guy needs help. And it was just mayhem. And by the way, there's no design boss. You're going to be led by a team of marketing people until we hire that role back. And so I'm learning already in the first steps. It's like all these decisions get made by people who are the marketing crew. They're not footwear engineers. They're not shoe designers. They're the marketing people, but they had more say I, in the, I guess, the scope of the projects, really, because they would outline everything that we had to do, what price point it had to be in, what technology had to be underneath your foot. So it's
Hmm.
a very prescriptive route that I saw, in the first 4 or 5 years I was there, about how to get my job done. So I'm getting my feet wet. I'm enjoying the ride. I'm getting to work with world class athletes. enjoying what I'm doing, but I'm still in my heart trying to push more of this agenda of helping people out.
Yeah.
And I hadn't got there yet, but when I started working with athletes and I would ask to look at their feet, it was usually no, you can't look at my feet. Why not? You don't want to see these. And I was like, no, I can help you. I want to be of service and help you. And I can be a voice because I know no one here is really talking to you about your foot health.
Yeah. And this is kind of all stemming from that podiatrist that you've
Yeah.
encountered.
As a 19-year-old, I was seeing the 30, 40-year-olds already at that point breaking down. Ingrained in my head, like the longer you wear shoes that don't fit you, the more you're compromising your feet. The more you compromise your feet, the more your knees, your back, your hips, something else up the kinetic chain is taking up the load that your feet aren't doing for you. And so I'm understanding that and I'm trying to move that into the world of what I was doing, but it was so prescriptive, it didn't really have a need. So I kind of took it upon myself after I was working with another signature level basketball player, couldn't change the shape of his shoes. And I wasn't allowed to. It was already factored in. This is the shape it has to be. I'm like, well, if we look at his feet, I think we should change the shape of that. That's
Yeah.
not up to me. That's not up to you, Chad. You're not the engineer. You're not the last guy. You're not the guy at the factory. You're not any of those people. So don't worry about that. Okay. So I took it after that point to say I have to make a point to my boss of what I really am trying to do here because I was kind of out of steam at this point that no one was going to listen to what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I pitched it to my boss. He's like, you know what? You should show this to Michael Jordan. Let him see and judge for himself what he thinks of this. And so I think I talked about this in that Foot Collective video, but
Hmm.
I put this 20-minute presentation together. I get flown out to his basketball camp. I get a one-on-one meeting with him. And I pretty much show him what he started in his career with in Jordan 1s, and it's a flexible, low to the ground shoe. And over the years, it got thicker and thicker and stiffer and stiffer, and it kind of follows the path of where his career went. And in my head, I'm like, these shoes were making you probably weaker, your feet weaker. And I kind of put that in his face, and I was like, can I see your feet? And there was no, like, we're not going to look at my feet. And I already kind of know, I've seen pictures of him in locker rooms, and he has pretty squished toes,
Yeah.
almost a bunion looking going on. And I'm like, you can't avoid that if you wear that level of shoes for so long. And I'm the perfect testament to that. I started wearing Jordans as like a second or third grader that my parents wouldn't buy for me, and I wanted them so bad. I was working side jobs for my summer just to pay the extra $20 to get a pair of shoes that I wanted to feel happy about going to school. But what I realized, I think at a young age, I was tall and skinny, and so I had a lean frame, high center of gravity, and I had to get into men's shoes at an early age. And a
Mm.
men's shoe, a Jordan, which was in 1991, is about yay thick, and I'm tilted forward with this big heel lift in a shoe that wasn't flexing very well for my probably 60 or 70-pound frame at the time. And so I was constantly rolling my ankles at a young age, and I just attributed it to weak ankles. Hey, I'm skinny. That's what happens. But what I really didn't realize is how much worse the ankle sprains were happening the higher I was off the ground, because I'd go play basketball in my driveway outside and I'd be okay, and I never rolled my ankle, but I never put the two together. That if you put your shoes on and go harder, that's just what happens. You roll your ankle, and
Yeah.
you step on someone's foot, you can't avoid it. Um, but there are many non-contact injuries that I dealt with, and I'm sure many others too, that just a hard plant on the ground, and if your foot's not stable in the shoe will twist or roll over, and your foot and ankle go with it. So fast forward all that to me speaking all this to Jordan, thinking like he's going to have something in response, because the way I pitched it was we should look at toe box shapes. We should look at the whole, which, informs the whole shape of the shoe. Let's make socks better shaped for these guys. And I had imagery and just renderings that just showed the opportunity and how we could speak to athletes in a new light and be the leader of looking deeper into their feet, because the more I was working there, the more I was questioning, like, are we doing our best? Because every athlete that seems to be a sponsored athlete here has really not good foot health.
Yeah.
End of the presentation, he had no response to it other than, what if I'm bow-legged? And at the time, At the time, this is 2015, 16. I didn't really have a response. I just was like, well, I don't know what, that doesn't really have anything to do with, the shape of the shoes or helping these guys out. And the conversation ended right there. He just got up, said, I'm going to go to a photo shoot. He was done.
Yeah.
And so my heart was just like, well, okay, so he doesn't really care either. It felt weird, like putting all that out there, thinking I was gonna get a response, and to not get it. I didn't know what to do at that point. I was ready for a conversation like we're having right now to get
Right.
deep and involved in it, and no response to it led me to think, okay, maybe I shouldn't be here at Jordan Brand. This is not maybe the best place for me. So I did one more effort, and I took that presentation to Nike's innovation team.
Mm-hmm.
And I pitched it to the head of footwear innovation at the time in 2015. And he said, this is great. Let me see if you can do this again tomorrow morning. You cool with that if I bring a few more people? Okay. And I show up, and he's got a room full of the whole innovation team of footwear makers and engineers and people they were bringing from NASA to work on the self lace up shoes. And I do the presentation again. And then I think I fielded questions from everybody for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just me speaking from knowledge, my past, kind of what I just framed up with you here. And after that got done, he's just like cleared the table in the space and like, this is like where I want you to start working. Starts pulling out boxes from everywhere and is like, I want you to see this project, and I want you to interject this thinking into all these projects we're working on. I'm like,
Yeah.
thank God. Someone's listening, someone understood. He's putting me in a spot that I can succeed. This is amazing. And for me, like my childhood hero was Michael Jordan as a basketball player. I had his posters around my room. But also what I was getting interested in the shoe design world, I was getting these magazines that are called Slam and Kicks back in the day. And I was seeing these inside stories of designers and what they were doing and how they were thinking at their desks. And I'd see Aaron Cooper, Eric Avar, and these guys who were designing the Paytons and the Pippins and the shoes I was buying when I was a
Yeah.
kid. And that instantly turned my artistic thought into like, there's other people thinking like this. There's other people who
Mm-hmm.
are looking at an image and drawing a picture for it. And now I'm in this position 20 years later where I'm sitting in this innovation space, and I'm sitting next to these guys that I was revering as a youngster. And like Tinker Hatfield is in this space too. And he says, you kind of have like a free will to kind of do what you want. Because I see how you're thinking. I want you to just like put some stuff together. So I make myself a custom pair of shoes for the first time. And I have the assist of people who are hand making shoes in their lab in the Beaverton area. And it gave me an aha moment. I have a shape of a foot that's like a baby's. It's triangular. It's thin in the heel,
Yeah.
laid out toes. It doesn't
Beautiful.
fit any natural shoe shape of Nike's while I worked there. And so I was constantly getting my foot health better, wearing their shoes and going backwards. So I was always in this fight while I was working there. But when I made myself a shoe that fit my foot, and I was actually wearing some spacers, and I could like wear this whole setup with a shoe that was super light because I didn't build in all the unnecessary crap. I'm not that heavy of a guy, so I didn't want a thick shoe. So I was always, in my head, the best basketball shoes I ever performed in were the ones that I played in for like 6 to 12 months. And all those foams compressed down to being really low to the ground because now I feel the court really well.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, to me, those were always the best shoes. And when I blew out those shoes because my foot was like literally coming through the rubber on the bottom, I was always like, damn, I have to start over and I have to buy a new pair of shoes that's going to be way up here that have to like beat in for months. And it was a terrible process for me to beat in shoes to actually get them to the point where they were comfortable enough for me to wear. But
Yeah.
when I got that first custom pair of shoes, I made them super flexible, super low to the ground, not a bunch of unnecessary stuff. And I went and ran around and just like, this is what I should have felt my whole life. This is exactly it. So I was like young 30s at that point. I made myself a slip-on performance basketball shoe that weighed like 6 ounces, and it was
Wow.
made for my foot shape, and completely opened my thinking of like, this is what athletes need. They need to experience this. I was far from the peak of my athletic career of being in my 18 to 22 range when I felt like I was jumping my highest, running my fastest. But now I'm like 32 thinking maybe there's a path for me to get back to those days because after those days, I bet for a lot of athletes, when you're done playing your sport and working out 3 times a day or multiple times a week, your health just declines slowly and slowly. And I started seeing that. I was sitting behind a computer more than I was playing basketball, obviously. There was like a awakening for me to think I want to start playing in these shoes more, because I'm going to finally start allowing myself to play for multiple hours and not think that I'm going to debilitate my foot where I have to reverse that for the next 2 hours after I take off my crappy shoes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm more excited now to play basketball because I know I'm not going to screw up my feet more. So
Right.
it got my mentality to move more and be more physical, and it changed my whole perspective. And for me, I was like, now I feel like I'm moving the needle and I'm getting on the right track. I showed it to my boss, and he's excited enough to say, "Let me try this thing on." Walks around and says, "Yeah, it's like the most comfortable shoe I've ever worn." Ha! Just kind of laughing about it. I'm like, okay, where do we take this? Where are we going with this? Like, what can we do with this? I was still working at Jordan Brand as a designer, and anytime I had free time, I was coming over to this space to make stuff and work with these guys.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was, hey, I can't really hire you full time, but still, we kind of want you to focus on these other North Star projects. And it was carbon fiber plates and airbags and the tech that they sell to market to make shoes and make money. And when it came back to that as the square one of where I had got to this point of like, no, we're this close. Like, more people need to experience this, and no one really cared. So I literally just packed my boxes and just like said thank you to the people that I made good relationships with, and said, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm out of steam to do this anymore. There's got to be a better way. So I moved back to LA area with my wife, and it was funny as she was working at Nike, and she like zigzagged up and was in a great position, and then it was me who said like I don't want to be here anymore. So I was convincing her to leave Nike so that we can go be by her parents while we were pregnant about to have our first kid. And we ended up making it down there, and I got into the apparel world in Hollywood, and then worked for Mitchell and Ness, a throwback sportswear company.
Hey, yeah.
Did that for a while, and then I got to the point where I was managing people and situations that, like, I don't know, my head was still thinking I'm going to do something. I know this isn't it. And we ended up moving back to the Northwest where I grew up, which is just a small town in Washington, like 45 minutes from Portland. And it was really because it's half the price to live here as it is Southern California. So it allowed us to have a second kid, be around while raising the kids, and allow me an opportunity, as I was convincing my wife. And she didn't have to be convinced because she was interested in moving up here where I grew up. It's just we have more space, and I grew up in a backyard with a ton of space, and when we
Yeah.
were down in California, we had no space, and my kid was 1 at the time and already throwing balls over our fence. I'm like, yeah, I want space for his kids to grow up and run around and not have just cars around us everywhere. And so it was an easy decision for her, but it allowed me to now, this was 6 years ago, move into where we're at now and refuel my thinking of, I think I could do something better. My background up until that point was telling people how to make shoes, drawing it on a paper, 3D modeling on a computer, and then flying to factories and watching them fail to do usually what I'm thinking. And it would take round after round after round to finally get to somewhere where you'd want it. And then you get it back to like the big companies, and it's usually like, well, we have to take that detail off and that detail off. We're going to save money. And it was a weird process, but I noticed how it worked, but I was never making the shoes. I was just always frustrated at the whole process of explaining what I wanted, telling people how low and thick it should be, and then there's all the other people in line that actually make the shoe and make the decisions of who's selling the shoe, and they'll change even just by little
Yeah.
millimeters things that make sense for production, make sense for cost. And then you see the shoe out in
Yeah.
the market and you realize that's not how it was supposed to be. That was supposed to, and so much of the way I would be designing was more for function than aesthetic, but it was mostly aesthetic driven. So
Yeah. And
I
they were
got this
following just the conventional norms.
right. And it was a blessing to be able to come back to a, a home now that we have a big downstairs, and I could kind of lay things out and start thinking as simple as like making a moccasin for myself. One piece of material, stitch it together. Can I achieve that? And so I started doing that enough to where it made sense for myself and for my family members that I was making them for. But then I started taking some shoemaking classes so I could get better at it in the Portland area. And that's when I met, for a second time, my business partner, Jared. So Jared was working for a shoe school in Portland. And that shoe school was started by my old boss at Jordan Brand, Dr. Dwayne Edwards. And Jared was the sample shoemaker at the school. And when I came up and saw him work one day and realized that he was making a fashion runway shoe one day, a sport relative shoe the other day, he was modifying his own skate shoes the other day. I'm like, you know how to put any type of shoe together, and you're really good and smart about looking at the shape and the project. Because lots of times I'm like, when I did this from a big corporate world, I'd have to send this elaborate blueprint detailed tech pack to a foreign country to have something lost in translation, and it's a year of back and forth until you get like a shoe that's okay. And I'm like, to watch you put that together in a few hours, I was like, holy shit, this is impressive. I want to
Yeah.
work with you some more, like see how you're doing all this. And I realized as a youngster, he was a skateboarder and he was thrashing through shoes so fast, he had to understand how to cobble his shoes back together as a teenager and for
Hmm.
years, because just parents not being able to afford new shoes that quick. So he got really good at being able to patch his shoes, stitch his shoes, replace parts to his shoes, and it grew to a position where he worked for that shoe school making samples forever. So when I was at that point in my life where I'm like making simple level shoes and I'm looking at Jared doing complex shoes, I'm like, if you work with me together, I think we could do some serious damage, because I understand a lot of this world and what the problem is. You understand the shoemaking part of it. I understand some shoe health knowledge to this. You understand that. Let's start combining our thinking. This was about 3 years ago. We started making more custom shoes for ourselves.
Nice.
Now 43, and I was still at this thinking that I want to make shoes for myself and still go play basketball. I'd now been home for 4 years and not at any office where I had to wear shoes to work. So I've been going barefoot essentially for the last 4 years at this point, and my feet were just splayed so wide that I couldn't wear any of the Jordans or Nikes that I had hooped in for the previous 30 years. I got 1,000 pairs of shoes and I can't fit one of them. And
Yeah.
so I'm personally motivated to make a shoe that I can run around in without the assist from a factory, because it's a costly process to go get a factory to make you one shoe. And they don't want to do that. They want to make you a shoe in lieu of making 20,000 shoes. And so we kind of just took it upon ourselves to make shoes for ourselves. And we posted that work to social media. It got the attention initially from a few professional athletes who said, can you do this for me as well? And it put us on the spot and challenged us, because through my lens of rubber shoes, training shoes, basketball shoes, court shoes, and skate shoes, rubber bottoms, we're now getting asked by a USA rugby player and an NFL player, can you make custom cleats for me? Because I have no option.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, actually, I think we can. So we were 3D printing parts for other reasons. And we're like, I think we can make 3D printed cleat bottoms that fit your foot. So we were looking at people's foot scans, understanding what foot shape they had.
Hmm.
And the guys who were reaching out to us initially were like people who had great foot health, strong, wide, just big claw feet. And I'm like, yeah, you're like 50% short of fitting in, like, you see these feet this big and you see these tiny shoes that they were standing next to, and like, you were fitting. How were you even like working with that? So they buy what's best, and then they stick shoe stretchers in there, and we get the same story on repeat from so many professional athletes, is that they're just trying to stretch out what's available. And half the time,
Yeah.
more than half the time, it's just a width problem that Nike and Adidas, being the biggest sponsors for these guys, for cleats, and the options of just not really getting to a lot of people's foot health, or the natural foot health that we see, and like that we were seeing on ourselves, just going barefoot more and understanding like there are other
Yeah.
athletes out here who do train barefoot. And so one of the first guys that we started working with in the NFL that we still work with today is Noah Igbenogany. And
Hmm.
he training barefoot, his parents were teaching him how to sprint corners at a young age. I think they were Olympic sprinters. So he understood mechanics and movement, but he was in his third year in the NFL and realized that his feet were becoming a problem and he was getting more often injured and didn't know what was going on. And just Googled, does anybody make a wider cleat at the time? And saw that we had made one for this rugby player prior to that. So the first pair we made for him was wide. Actually, I think I have an old sample from 3 years ago when he played for the Dolphins, but that was his footprint. And what was unique about this wasn't just that we matched his foot shape and volume. It was that he wanted this level of flexibility in the cleat. So it's still a hard cleat, still got the traction that he needed. But he was telling us, and also we thought the same thing, like shoes don't need to be as stiff as they make them. And they should flex here because that's how a foot naturally moves. Usually from here to here, it's so stiff on most cleats that these guys are wearing that it doesn't allow the foot to get into any other natural positions. And so the more he put that to our attention, the more we started buying current cleats that were on the market, cutting them up, understanding more about what position these guys who were now beginning to complain. We were getting a lot of people hitting us up saying the same thing. And it made sense. The more we broke apart Under Armour's and Adidas and Nike's cleats, they're bad. And we started putting some YouTube content up that shows really like the stiffest part of the cleats and how it was shaped to so I'll grab a foot model. But it shows better detail in our YouTube video, but essentially if the foot's naturally flat and you want your toes to be actively working, they weren't allowed to do that because the shape of these stiffener plates is doing this. So you push the balls of your feet down into that shape and your pinky and big toe are up here. And then you have a narrow toe box. And so you get squeezed in here. So your feet are actually in like the opposite shape and position that you want to be for natural movement. And you're forced to be in these shapes because it's how they stiffen the shoe up. It's how they make it safe for athletes so that they don't hurt themselves, is what they say. And it's becoming an issue for us now because the testing that gets involved for the NFL, they have a scoring range that says, if you're higher in this category, that means you're better or safer. And they pretty much make a poster chart on the NFL team's walls that says, this cleat measured here during our testing, this cleat measured here. So if a guy has three options in front of him from the equipment manager, he can look at a poster and make the determination if he wants the more flexible version or if he wants the wider version based on their standards. But based on their standards, you get a scoring range that says 100 out of 100 means, the best you could score is the stiffest cleat. That means that you're going to be the safest. And that's how they determine what's good. And so that's just one example. And so we went out to NFL equipment show that we got invited to. And we got to show off what we're doing, how we're thinking to every NFL team out there. And you could tell which teams didn't care and which guys kind of had a little bit of interest to ask what we were doing. So it was a pretty cool experience. And then we find out that the people that are in charge of NFL and cleats are just in a room down the hallway. And we're at some convention center in Orlando. So I just take it upon myself to go over there, ask around, where's this person? Where's this person? I want to meet her. Yeah. So I can get her to come to our booth, look at our stuff, because I feel like we're getting pushback. And so she says, oh, okay, yeah, I'll come look at your stuff. She never came down the hallway to look at our stuff. So we had to schedule a Zoom call to understand what's the situation here. And as we get told, if you want your cleats to be in the NFL, you have to pass our tests. And to pass our tests, you need to send us your cleats. And for every different person you make a cleat for, we have to test every cleat. Okay. Well, it's $5,000 per test. So if we got 10 players, you want $50,000 from us just to tell us that our cleats are okay for them? No, it's for us to tell the equipment managers that your cleats are okay. And I go, okay, well, we don't have that type of money. We have myself and my business partner. We don't have investors. We do this out of the basement of my home because we have passion for this. and because athletes hit us up and are willing to pay for our time and labor to do this. This isn't even like our passion, but we see how passionate these guys are about what they need, and
Yeah.
it's helping us kind of develop a sense of what we're doing, because without these guys supporting us to build cleats, we would just be building shoes for ourselves. So it's been a great team working with a bunch of different NFL players, getting their feedback, understanding how to make a cleat better for everybody. And we're really trying to boil it down to making a cleat that does work for everybody. Not everybody needs a completely custom situation. So the cleat that we have on our website now, it comes with
I saw that.
we have the opportunity to change the stiffness or flexibility to 6 different degrees. So we have a really minimal cleat that's flexible, and we have a pro version, which is already snappy and built with more stiffness like you would expect. We don't want these guys jumping from what they've been in, which is super stiff, into something that's super minimal without knowing what they're getting into. So
Yeah.
for guys who have only been in Nikes and Adidas, we have conversations with them, and we won't, unless, we don't feel safe letting people know what's going on until we've understood what's your shoe wearing history. What do you wear most of the day? Do you
Yeah.
train barefoot? Do you have foot strength? When we understand their footwear knowledge and history, as well as seeing their foot scans, so we see if they have hammer toes or do they have a healthy foot. Are they
Yeah.
standing on their arches, or are they all slumped over? It helps us bring into conversation that a lot of these guys, we don't tell them to buy our cleats, because if they have pretty bad foot health, our cleats aren't going to be good for you. If you have a really
Yeah.
scrunched up foot and you got a wide toe box, it's not good to move around in that thing. So we tell them, or we usually just send them our toe spacers to say, hey, start your journey of foot health, get your toe splay back, start doing foot exercises when you're not wearing your cleats, take off the Nikes, the Adidas, the dress shoes, anything that's pointy that it's not helping your foot health. If you want longevity in your career, I don't think your equipment manager or your team doctors are giving this level of just footwear knowledge, and maybe they are. So I don't want to talk bad that they're not receiving it, but I feel responsible to let them know, like, a lot of times it's not our cleat that's going to help you. It's you getting your foot healthy, and then you're really going to enjoy a cleat that's not stiff and not narrow. And when your foot's strong, and then you use a shoe that complements that strong foot, these athletes now get to train and play for 2-3 hours without being inhibited. They're getting stronger feet. So that was one thing that always stuck with me, is like, how is it that I'm training 5 hours a day as a collegiate basketball player, but I'm like taking my shoes off at the end of the day going, my feet are damaged. My skin is falling off. My toe, like, how come my feet didn't get a workout? It looks like they got beat up. And so it never made sense that
Yeah.
it's never working for me and against me. So the comments we hear
Yeah.
from guys now that they get to play in cleats that are working with them is, I don't have groin pain anymore. I don't have back pain anymore. I'm doing sprints at the end of the night because I have so much natural energy. It's like I'm getting the zoomies out because I'm not in pain. I'm not icing my feet anymore. I'm not doing the things that everybody else is dogging about with the shoes that they have been wearing. So it's music to our ears when we hear that from people. But then we're in this uphill
Definitely.
battle of trying to get them to more athletes without getting the pushback. We have NFL teams that are banning our cleats and their players from wearing them. We had players who buy our cleats and they get told that they're not allowed to wear them because they haven't been approved by the
That's so
NFL.
crazy.
Yeah.
So
So
I wanna pause you really quick. There, I think it's super important to mention on helping educating athletes and saying like, hey, this is not for you yet. Like this, your foot's not ready because your track record shows that you've been conditioned by the sport, by society, by modern, etc. That you need to be like you need to live this life, which is super minimal, super rigid and stuck and conformed. And I think like I live the barefoot life, but in the sense of like to go against conformity, go against the way of the world. It's like, oh, the world's going this, and this is the trend, and this is what's happening. And the shoe trend is like to make it just very just off the factory, out of the factory, just whatever is like cool. This mold, let's push this out to everybody, and then let's shove in more technology that we could sell, that we can market better. And you mentioned that earlier, just the marketers running the game. But to be able to, instead of driving sales, you're like, wait, this shoe's not going to be good because foot health is your priority. And I think so many more athletes need to hear that. Like, hear the company, hear anybody who's saying, like, hey, wait, let's take care of your foot first. If you're wearing these shoes, let's like slowly back out of them before you jump into this super minimal shoe or running barefoot, which I don't know, you might have noticed on my Instagram page, like I just ran my first half marathon and I ran it barefoot.
Uh,
And it was, and there was a, after the race, this family stopped me. They had a 19-year-old son or 17-year-old son, and he had some super shoe, some Nike super shoe on. And he was like, yeah, no, I can't run barefoot because my feet, like the bones are weak. And I was like, it's because you're wearing the super shoe.
yeah.
And I explained it to him, and the mom was like, she was sold, but just by me finishing the half marathon barefoot. And she was like, you need to listen to him. And I live out here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, so it's beautiful, and I can have a conversation. My Spanish is not impeccable, but it's like it's okay. And I was telling them like, hey, look, you can keep wearing your shoes, but how about like just run like half a kilometer in grass barefoot to just see what that feels like for you, and then from there decide to do it again, increase, etc., etc. But overall, more athletes need to hear, hey, don't just jump over and then run, do completely barefoot, or go completely minimal without stepping out of it. And you offered you could still, as a business owner, you've created that solution of like, hey, here's the toe spacers, and this could help you break into the next phase of things. And I think it's a super important piece that a lot of athletes, because the barefoot industry is growing beautifully. Like, it's on some level, it's like, yes, like all the foot nerds are like, yes, like we're growing, there's more things, there's more opportunities out there. And the other side, I'm like, oh, there's going to be companies coming in saying barefoot, saying wide toe box, and it's not.
Yes.
And I think I saw in your story, it's like there's a little tag on it. It was like wide toe box.
Shoe. Yeah.
And it just wasn't.
I've been duped by Adidas that says this is our wide toe shoe, and I've been duped by Native. It's a company that makes like Crocs, kind of like slip-on shoes.
Okay. Yeah.
I bought a pair that was marketed as wide for my kid when he had to first get his first pair of shoes to go to school, because he had been barefoot really for like the first 4 years for the most part. So to go to school, we get him the widest toe box shoe we can. About a month later, I take his shoes and socks off at the end of the night. He's got a full-on crossed over hammer toe. I was just like, what is going on? I was like, are you doing that? He's like, no, I can't move it. I'm like, well, oh my God. And I looked at the shape of the tip of the shoe. It was like wide, and then it just came back to a tip at the end. So his big toe, as he was growing, was just getting shoved in there and crossed over.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there's not a real understanding in the shoe world, outside of good minimal companies who have figured it out, where the classic Adidas and Antas and whoever else that advertises a wide shoe. I was just analyzing the Nike Footscape, which was supposed to be a shaped shoe that was 4 feet, and it was a foot shaped last, is what they called it. And now that we have our foot health better, and we tried like putting our feet, like, oh, of all the Nike shoes we have in this closet, maybe we could put our foot in that one, because that's how they advertised it back in whatever 20 years ago. It's not even fitting a natural foot health. So it's something we always constantly have to battle with understanding for talking to people. And what we even just base our last shapes, the shape of what's here. Actually, I have one right here. We looked at volumental foot scans, and they have like 4 million public scans of feet that are available. And so we took the averages of everybody's foot, and it changes from size 5 to 6 to 10 to 15s, where there's more girth in the heel, where there's more girth in the midfoot, and feet tend to elongate the bigger the size gets, instead of, they don't scale in proportion and get meatier and bigger, everywhere else. So
Yeah.
the more we broke down these millions of scans, the more we understood where feet need to be in the average. And what we were looking at was basically from here back, all this stuff. Because we knew
Mm-hmm.
that everything in that toe box region through 4 million scans was probably 3.9 million scans of really unhealthy feet. And when we say unhealthy feet, we mean just like squished toes. So we don't want the
Yeah.
average of all that. We started taking the average of the hundreds of athletes of foot scans that we saw that had good foot health. And we started breaking them down to the size 10s, 11s, 12s, and getting our happy averages of where we thought things should be. So, like, this is just a big happy average of where we
Yeah.
saw as many athletes that we could see, and then we
Looks
influenced
good.
the toe box shape. But this is just like the shape we use for our cleats. Um, we have a slightly different shape for the skateboard shoes that we're making. Just he understands where the foot's at in space and where he wants it to have more space, where he wants it to be tighter. So being able to influence this and how the material wraps around the shoe and how that material ultimately works with a functioning moving foot, it's a blessing to understand it and to be able to go to a sewing machine and make a part and put it on our foot and test things before we even went to a factory to help get help just making more cleats. Up until that point, we were making these completely with a 3D printer. Every part on here is plastic and made with a 3D printer, and then we would shape it around the shape of the athlete's foot.
Okay. Yeah.
Very cumbersome, laborious process, and it's a lot of plastic, so it's not sweat absorbing material. So the more we developed this idea into having more performance oriented materials on the uppers, the more we were getting better feedback from our guys, the more they were loving it. Gave us enough confidence with our blueprint to go to a factory to start making them. But we've only opened size 12 of the mold because we have multiple NFL players that can fit it.
Right.
And we just opened a size 11 and 13, and we're getting those to a few other NFL players right now who've been waiting for months. But we don't have the funds or the ways and means to open up size 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, all the way up to 16. We have NFL
Yeah.
guys up to size 17 who are waiting for us to open molds, and we're like, I hope we can someday and you guys don't forget about us until we get there. But
Yeah.
right now we're just like taking the funds from what we've made through custom cleats and we just invest it back into what we're doing. We haven't paid ourselves in 3 years in doing this business, and it's all just for the love of athletes and shoes and foot health and knowing that this is going to influence people to one day help us. Like, I can't get this to grow in the basement of my house. Like, I'm not bringing in people to come work down here. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do we do a lot here. We do social media and making the shoes, the production. We do the website work. Every single bit of what we do is down here. So we're looking forward to finding other like-minded people who think through this stuff and understand foot health, because without even being able to pay an employee yet, just I think if I knew about the situation, I would have jumped ship with any job that I had to know that I could learn from two people how to put a shoe together and have enough
Yeah.
material on hand to just come up with a thought and put it together and test it out. It's a huge benefit to be able to sample a shoe and go test it at full speed and understand how to make it better in 1 week, because this process while working for bigger shoe companies would take a year up to 2 years or more before you
Yeah.
understood what your designs were doing and if it was going to work or not. And you know it's
I'm
been
selfishly intrigued about making a running shoe. Like I've been wearing Vivo Barefoot, and they're great. I love them. Is it perfect? What shoe is? I believe the human foot is perfect. So, but it's like to hear your process, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder like what it would be like to have a custom shoe to run in that. Like even running the half marathon, it's like it's a big feat because you're running a long distance.
uh,
But it's like mentally, I'm watching the ground for every single little pebble,
yep.
and I'm like jumping on the grass when there is grass available, and I'm like moving and dodging. I'm like running the race like this, and I'm like, man, what would it be like to just go, just go straight, and not have to worry about like the little pebble or anything? And it's like, a custom shoe sounds beautiful. Like I would,
I,
if if I had the opportunity to be closer, I would definitely like spend a month and be like, hey, where can I help? How could I learn anything.
That'd be amazing. We would have you in a heartbeat just to do this. Then what you just said there is exactly, I think, the biggest gold nugget of what we do. When an athlete wears a pair of shoes where they completely can turn their mind off of it, it's not about putting our shoes in and going, "Oh, it's amazing! It's so comfy when I step in it." The key words that we used to look for. Now it's to me like if you can forget that you even have shoes on, and now you can just focus on your race and going straight. Or as a football player, you can focus on the next play, and you're not wondering why your foot's hurting and you're grabbing at your toes. Like the more we can turn that off, and you can get to the end of the game and take your shoes off and not have foot pains or problems, the better we did our job. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to make a pair of running shoes for you because that's the best experience when you get to go perform your sport or movement and not have any issues afterwards.
It's because like now like my big toes, like the skin, the callus that built up is like peeling off, and it's like it's not painful, but it's a thing, and it's like
Yes.
okay, cool. And I committed to no shoes November, so this whole month I've been running barefoot,
Nice.
and it's been super cool. And I got another half marathon coming up, and I'm gonna do it barefoot again, and all to kind of shine, like allow some light to be from me to like, wow, look at this guy, like this kind of crazy guy doing his thing. But I'm planning, and I told you before, like offline, that I'm planning the Barefoot Games, which is going to be an athletic competition done in either completely barefoot or in barefoot or minimalist shoes, and testing athletes across speed, strength, endurance, mobility, and mobility.
Nice.
And my plan for that is to make it like the biggest barefoot competition in the world, that like it just pops up in different cities. Think you have a sorry, I gotta notice that like you're
I had a call coming in. I just hung up on it.
yeah. Let me see. Okay, I think you're recording it. It had paused recording because the call came in.
Yeah, why is it recording now at 20 seconds?
Yeah, it's a fresh recording, so
Okay,
but it saved the other one.
gotcha.
So to be able to create this event where like a High Rocks, like a Spartan race, anybody who if you feel like you're a real like raw bear athlete, you could come and compete, and there's not like me running a half marathon or a 5K or a 10K against somebody in some alpha flies. It's like I'm running it barefoot, you're running with like how much years of technology built into your feet, like onto your feet. It's not fair.
Yeah, I agree.
And to just create competition on even playing field of like, because I some of these shoes I'm like these can't be legal.
I don't know how they're not illegal yet. We've broken those shoes down before too. You're literally on a curved carbon fiber springboard that's propelling every step for you, so you're getting a little bit more on every step. But like I was just in California last week or 2 weeks ago, and I saw someone running on a beach boardwalk with those super shoes, and it was the sloppiest. The foot would land. The foot would land, and his whole ankle would be here before he could recover into the next step. And I'm like, even if you're winning races for a short while because you wore those shoes, how much damage are you doing? Because
Yeah.
there's so much foam in those shoes. The more
Hmm.
you hit the impact and you don't feel earth pushing back for your receptors to understand what you're doing, you're just sinking. You're sinking into the shoe while you're in this toes up position, heel up position, and your foot doesn't even know where earth is until it's just hit so much cushion fluff that the carbon fiber then pushes you to the next step. Like your body is doing so little at that point for your feet from a foot perspective. And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
see Nike's new technology of the shoe that's like moving for them, and it's for athletes. They say it's for athletes to go a little further or a little faster, and they're marketing it towards athletes. I mean, it's one thing that could be unique for like old people who need an assist to get up a stairs or something. But when you say that these are for athletes, like you're just trying to weaken people, like it's crazy to me.
And I would argue and say like they're not lying, but it's like they're for an athlete that like the top running and sprinting athletes in the world come from barefoot spaces.
Uh-huh.
From the West Indies, Africa, they're all coming from barefoot spaces, so their foot is actually strong and developed and has navigated for a decade or two, running and developing naturally.
Yes.
Then they go into a super shoe, so the foot knows what to do, and then take off. So for that athlete, sure. But
That's still
for
legal.
yeah, I mean it's still not legal. But for the. I mean, if you just want to make a shoe to make a shoe, and like you going out for your casual 5K, cool. But like when it goes into an actual competition field, it's not legal. But all for the reason why I just feel called. The guy is just telling me like, hey, like create this thing. And now I'm in a space. I'm having my first one here in Mexico in March. Putting all the planning together, getting with some guys here. I'm excited. It's gonna be on the beach, so it's gonna be a lot different. It's gonna be a cool like visual of just like this whole beach competition. But I can't wait to bring it to the States and just take off and just kind of have it pop up in different cities and
Yeah.
bring in all these. Love to have you there to market your shoe, to have conversations with spectators, with athletes, to just learn and see like, oh wow, like it's a space where all the barefoot nerds could come in and just nerd out, but also still see human performance at its peak level.
Yes, I like that. I like that combination of foot health and elite movement competition. Like it doesn't really exist that I know of, so I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah, it's and it feels so much bigger than me, because I mean it is, but it's like, well, nobody else is doing it, and maybe nobody else has been called to do it, or everybody else is afraid because it's not the norm of like, we can't sell. You can't get Nike to sponsor it because.
Yeah. But I'm sure a lot of minimal shoe companies would want to be a part of it because the only other time I see a congregation of foot nerds, shoe nerds, healthy shoe foot nerds. It's at like shoe convention centers where just companies are meeting while they're in their suits and ties versus
Yeah,
out on a playing field and actually moving in the shoes. That's what I want to see because a lot of the minimal shoe world, I'm happy for all growth. I was so excited when Zero made a basketball shoe and I can
yeah,
buy something that fits and functions. And like you said, like I love it. It's the best option out there, but it's not perfect. And it's just me being picky about knowing what I want, but it's still amazing and I'm happy for it. But a lot of minimal shoe companies out there aren't really thinking high performance because it's kind of an oxymoron when you think of a minimal shoe that you can twist and wring in your hand, but you're going to run 100 miles an hour and change direction in that shoe. No, it's going to twist underneath your foot. And that's kind of where we're trying to find that happy balance because there is a level where each athlete has a different foot strength and body torque that they need to be able to plant hard and not have the shoe twist and deform so much that you're in a compromised position. As long as the shoe holds enough position to push you wherever you're going, that's like the minimal amount that we're always trying to get to helping the athlete. And I think that's what's been successful for us with like NFL players is finding that balance where you're only giving them enough of what you need to perform. And I think like for your competition, it would be amazing to be able to be at a level where what we're planning on, it's similar approach to what we're doing with the cleats, but for like a skate basketball or just like a low top training shoe, being able to pull the insole out and have a different level of stiffness or flexibility that's just an easy thing to pull out allows people to transition away from shoes that are too stiff, but it also can allow you to take your really minimal, like a Vivo shoe, for instance, if it fits that part, allows you to stiffen it up a little bit so the shoe doesn't deform too much if you're in a competition you need to go 100% in your minimal shoes.
yeah. That's beautiful. Definitely, I haven't seen anything like that in all the other brands. Also, I don't know any other brands that are really fully committed to elite athletic performance. Evo is what I'm comfortable with and what I've known. Like they make commercial things, but they still make some like, hey, this is made to like move in it, like kind of destroy the shoe, and we'll remake it for you. Kind of that's their
Uh-huh.
mo, and it's nice, but it still doesn't feel like top end athlete yet, or that I've been exposed to. I'll say.
Yep, I agree. And that's why I think
Yeah.
zero hit the tipping point by putting an NBA and WNBA players in a minimal shoe. It's pretty great to see because
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. The guy on the Detroit Pistons who's wearing them, he's
Hmm.
not a little guy. He's a big guy, and to
He's a
see
big guy.
wearing a minimal shoe and move around on the court the way he does, like I hope that encourages more people to like scratch their head and look at what he's doing because essentially that's the only way we've grown is from Noah being seen wearing a wide toe box cleat and people just going, "Wait, where'd you get that?" And just through word of mouth. And now with like the equipment managers and some players know us, it's the only way like we're able to spread what we're doing other than and
Hmm.
have conversations with you like right now we're just trying to build shoes and hope to get noticed.
I feel you. I feel you. It's the same. It's like, hey, let me have the conversation with the people who are crazy like me, so that way when the games do pop up, it's like, oh yeah. Like let me join this competition because it looks like you're my cup of tea.
Yes, yes, yes.
I do want to wrap, but I have a few quick firing questions. Okay, so this you're probably obviously biased for this one. Your favorite shoes?
My favorite shoes, I'm probably wearing them right now. It's a 3D printed bottom, so it's all foamed plastic, so it actually has cushioning inside built in. But it's
Nice.
just a knit upper that we got from a factory in LA. It's a two-piece shoe, super easy to construct, built off of my foot shape, and allows me to go train, run, play basketball. I've got insoles that I put in here, but you can see inside it's just 3D printed part and a knit upper to the whole thing. But
Love it.
the second favorite shoe, you want to see preview?
Yeah.
There's some basketball shoe I'm finishing up right now. But the idea is that we're going to build this ankle strap through the shoe so that you can actually. I've always had the issue of if I ever needed a ankle brace, I would be adding it to my ankle and then putting a basketball shoe on, and you get this situation where the shoe and the collar of the ankle brace they work against each other. Essentially,
Yeah.
you make your shoe bulkier and they don't fit together. So the idea is that the shoe is going to be able to incorporate a strap that runs through it when you need an ankle brace. If you have just sprained your ankle, you need a little assist.
Yeah.
But when you don't need it, you can just unthread the thing and play in a more minimal shoe and change out the plates to more stiffness or less stiffness. So it's kind of a similar approach.
I love that. Love
Yeah.
that. Socks or no socks?
Socks. Yeah, something's got to absorb some of that foot sweat. I do too much running around, and if I don't soak up the sweat, the shoes get wet, and the shoes will get smelly quicker. So I'd rather just wash the socks.
Got you. Your favorite space to be barefoot?
Grass, anywhere on grass, backyard.
Likewise. Your best warm up for your feet, for your body, but for your feet.
I'm still a big basketball player, so anytime I'm trying to take and I've had to take kind of warming up by doing just a lot on a basketball court that we built, and so being able to be on a basketball court barefoot is great for me because it really wakes up your feet slapping around on a hard floor. And once I get warmed up enough and my feet are warmed up, it makes putting a minimal shoe on seem like I just got the assist. If I walk onto a sports minimal shoe sometimes, I don't get the spring back that I used to always have in a basketball shoe. And it feels like I have to warm up through this thing a while. So just feeling
Hmm.
warm up before anything, especially at my age now, it helps a ton.
Yeah, love it. Your favorite recovery for your feet?
Favorite recovery. I can't say I've needed much foot recovery. It's been a blessing to go 2 hours of playing basketball and not to need foot recovery anymore. I don't ice my feet. I don't do anything for my feet out of the ordinary anymore. But that's because I did take care of my feet pretty religiously for age 20 to 35.
Nice, nice. Love it. What is the biggest difference you feel in your body after making the switch? So, from your early 20s.
It's funny because like at that point I didn't have knee problems, I didn't have back problems, but it was mid 20s when it started where I didn't ever injure my knee or my back in any instance. But now when I got done playing basketball, I was hurting in those areas for the next 24 to 48 hours. That gradually got worse and worse and worse until I started addressing my foot issue and then actually being able to play basketball in shoes that were fitting and functioning for my feet.
Mm-hmm.
changed the whole process to now I can go play 2 hours at 43, and I don't have the back pain and my knee pain still kind of there with it. I expect that.
Nice. And last question: What what shoes do you miss wearing that you stopped wearing because of your knowledge of foot health?
Oh God. I wore Jordan 1s for a long time, and it was a good transition shoe. I think this is a good fit for a lot of athletes out there. I was wearing basketball shoes, conventional basketball shoes forever.
Mm-hmm.
When I was wearing thicker shoes in the mid to late 2000s, the 2015s, I realized going back to a Jordan 1 was a great transition shoe because it was low to the ground. It had a full rubber bottom, so I had all the traction I needed. It had a low top and a high top version. I didn't have any complaints other than the toe box shape didn't really fit me that well. The heel offset was just a little bit higher. It wasn't this big, thick heel. A lot of that helped me transition to get ready to play in more minimal shoes in my body. Particularly one is one that I kind of missed so many pairs that I bought over the years that I can't fit anymore. I've stretched
Yeah.
some of them out where I'll sometimes we stick our shoe last into my old joints because soft leathers will expand and it's nice to be able to wear some of those again. But I just don't like the heel lift in shoes anymore. It feels foreign because I've been wearing zero drop shoes or barefoot. I just wear them if I go out sometimes now.
Gotcha. Your microphone's a little muffled, but the what can we expect from Code Footwear in the next coming, let's just say, year?
Hopefully a full size run of our cleats. We're also developing a high top cleat because a lot of the bigger guys from the NFL who reach out don't want a low top minimal cleat. So we got a completely different design that's going to use the same bottoms. And we're going hard for a basketball shoe and a skate shoe, but we're still patient enough to do it on our own and test for ourselves until we're confident enough to make the leap like we did with the cleat to go make more pairs for other people to enjoy. Um, and I think that's more of what we want to get into in the next year. We've been making a lot of custom footwear that's one at a time and helps individuals out, but I think we want to help more than just one individual out at a time, and we can help larger groups of people and still make a custom shoe on the side when we need to. It's great. That's what we're hoping for in the next year is just growth, maybe some investment help, and to move out of my basement into a building space where we can actually expand and grow.
Love it, love it, love it. Where can everybody find you if they're looking for toe spacers, for custom shoes, or just for a shoe that is designed for their best performance?
Code Footwear, CODE footwear.com. We have a store with toe spacers, custom shoe options. Best thing you can do is just email us. We can contact us through there, and just ask us any questions. We'll answer anything. It's just us. So when you send us a message, you're not getting something else to respond to. You're getting us. So if you have any shoe questions or foot health questions, we're an open book and always open to talk. And our Instagram, we do a lot of back and forth conversation with athletes as well. And our Instagram is code_FTWR. Really, those are our two platforms. We've been adding some content to YouTube a little more recently, but it spreads us thin when we try to do more. I'd love to get on TikTok too, because I know there's a lot more of a crowd that will understand what we're doing there, but one day at a time.
Yeah, but likewise over here. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. And you're located where again? Just
Longview, Washington, small town, southern Washington, just north of Portland.
Long Beach, Washington. Got you. Okay. Just think about when I could tell my wife I need to go somewhere for a month.
Come on up. So you're going to Portland, we'll come get you. That's closest airport to where we are and just come hang out. Hopefully we'll have a building by then, but if not, you can come shoot some hoops and make shoes with us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I enjoy basketball. It was, being named Jordan and growing up being black, named Jordan in the 90s at a predominantly white school was like, oh, you obviously are the next Michael Jordan, right? Like, but yeah, love it, love it. Had great conversation. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing. And until next time, I think we have a lot more to talk about. So maybe we'll circle back.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.